Welcome to the REI Diamond Interview, your source for real estate investment jewels of wisdom with Dan Breslin.
Welcome to the REI Diamonds episode, which is a supplemental Wholesale Masters series that I had started last week. And I'm here with Chris Seaborn, and we're going to talk about his progression, just getting started in the business, some of the ups and downs, handling wholesaling houses and getting started in the real estate business without a ton of cash on hand, and how he has been successful in doing that. And then at the same time, how he had transitioned from doing that simultaneously with a 9-to-5 job and then going full time. And we'll talk about some of the fears, challenges, and frustrations that came along with that success that Chris has now enjoyed. I'm Dan Breslin. I'm the host of the REI Diamonds podcast, and I am dedicated to helping you multiply your income and increase your net worth. So on each of these REI Diamonds episodes, I invite a world-class guest to share their valuable experience as it relates to real estate investing. And you're about to hear real-world experience from Chris on strategies and tactics that he is using right now in today's market to make money. Chris and I have been friends for the past couple of years. We have been, kind of dancing around, did a little business in the beginning, circled back around, and we're putting some things together and working hand in hand now. I'm impressed with Chris's level of results and the level of stick-to-itness and the level of reinvestment of the money that he's made in real estate. He's done a lot of things here to warrant even, coming on the show and sharing that experience. He's definitely putting together an example of how a success story is built. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. I know I talked a little bit about that story, but why don't you go with, let's talk about what you were doing before, what kind of career you had before real estate. You can kind of start as concise and as detailed as you want to go.
Yeah, well, originally, I'm born and raised in South Philadelphia. I come from an athletic background, playing basketball. So in high school, I went to Bach. I played basketball. Worked really hard, transferred, ended up, going to college, playing Division I basketball, ended up being one of the top players in the city at the time. So I come from a mindset, a training of just trying to be the best every day possible. Being an athlete when I was younger, I come from a home where it's just like everything is like my own merit. Like, there's no one like really pushing me to do anything. Everyone, it was just everything was like my own merit. If I had a dream, if I had a vision, I would have to go to accomplish it. Where I come from, it's just like everyone tells you, what you can't be, what you can't do. And my mindset was always the opposite. But anyway, went to college, had a double major. I graduated from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, with a full athletic basketball scholarship. While in college, basketball wasn't the only thing that intrigued me anymore. It was business. I became a party promoter. I threw the biggest parties that, my university ever seen. We were a graduate university. And not a graduate university, but honors university. So, it's basically all academics, really strict, really hard academic courses. And the party life is non-existent. There's no football team. So when I came there, I saw an opportunity to make money, to use my clout as far as basketball, to use my face to make money. What I became was a socialite. So it's kind of crazy because that was the point to where I had to choose business or sports. My coach gave me an ultimatum going into my senior year playing at UMBC. And it's the year, mind you, we went to a tournament playing Georgetown, and we broke records and everything. And I told him that, I wasn't going to stop my business. I was going to continue to strive to be an entrepreneur. And that's what I did. And that's kind of like where the entrepreneurial started. But after I got out of college, I started selling cars. And once I started selling cars, I just knew the sky's was the limit as far as business-wise, learning just the negotiation tactics of business. That right there, I knew I could separate myself to really take it to the next level.
Let's hear about your first deal, Chris.
So my first deal, this is how I met Dan Breslin. Oh, my God. So anyway, I'm selling used cars in Columbia, Maryland. I'm doing 15, 20 cars a month. I'm making $8 grand a month. I'm making money. But at the same time, my life wasn't the best. I was on probation for a couple of things. So my salesman's license from the state of Maryland was cut, because I had to go to court and, had different cases and whatever. So basically I got fired. So when I got fired, I moved back home. But mind you, 7 months, 8 months before, all I was doing was just studying real estate, studying wholesaling, studying this thing. I'm like, I'm seeing Mark Whitten, and I'm in Baltimore. I go to UMBC. I'm seeing all these guys locally, like really making all this cash. So I get fired from my job. I come home. I'm getting on Craigslist. I'm doing everything that I'm learning on. I'm just networking. I go to networking events. I meet an individual. He has a property in Upper Chichester in Marcus Hook. That's where it was, in Marcus Hook. Put under contract. Really didn't know what I was doing, but he was walking me through the process. I went to a REI meeting. I met Dan, and from there, that was basically the start of everything. Dan bought the property, and then from there, he took me under his wing. He saw something in me, took me under his wing, and here I am now.
So let's talk about, I remember that deal, and I thought that was your first deal, and I didn't, I wasn't 100% sure if you had popped something off, that I wasn't privy to before that. But that's one of my favorite things about the business, Chris, is helping new investors to get that first settlement check. I remember, just for my own personal, I started out with no car. I had gotten fired from a low minimum wage labor job. Basically, I was temping to kind of keep my bills somewhat paid, and laid off. And I ended up doing that first deal where the price of the house was $5,500. I remember selling the house to somebody for $11,500. So I had a $6,000 spread, and walking into the settlement room, I was making more money than the seller was going to leave out with. I was so nervous that the deal was going to blow up. To be honest, I didn't make that kind of money before in my life, especially not in one quick, large chunk. So that was there was a lot of fear for me. It was the challenge is is this going to close? Is this person going to actually come and give me this amount of money? Why wouldn't they just, show up and just do the deal and then not pay me? A lot of things ran through my mind at the time. And, walking out of that settlement room with the check was just a whole new experience in life. And it just to bring me to a whole nother level of abundance thinking, in my own life. So let's talk about kind of where your business has developed so far, because it wasn't all peaches and cream right after that first deal, Chris. There was a little more trials and tribulations. The market still really wasn't all the way there. And so up until we get to the point now, I guess it was just over the last year that it really started to plug in and kind of put the car in drive and get moving again. Is that kind of where we're at now?
Yeah, when I first started, I was dealing with the challenge of, being laid off. And I was just trying to use everything that I've learned to be successful in something that I've never done before. But I got my first deal in 30 days. It may sound crazy, but I wasn't scared of the process. I actually embraced the process. Then when I met you, we started doing deals with each other. Fast forward, I stopped for about a year and a half because, like I said, my life wasn't, the best. I had to, go back out to Maryland and go to court, get my stuff situated. But a year ago when I moved back, I called Dan up and I was like, hey, Dan, I'm back now. I got some stuff cleaned up in my life now. I'm ready to go full throttle with, real estate. And he said to me, what are you going to bring to the table? And I think at that point in my life, it clicked, it clicked. Because I had a dream to get into real estate. I've gotten in real estate. I found my first deal, actually finding my mentor. Then, life happens and I couldn't do it for a year and a half. So I come back. I'm so eager to be, do this thought of doing business with Daniel Bretland that's growing as an entrepreneur in the city. And he tells me, what are you bringing to the table? And it clicked. And that's when it clicked. That's when I got my banner signed. That's when I hit the street. That's when I got my deals. I called you 3-4 months later with a few deals, and now here we are. So, it just literally, they say a habit takes 30 days to develop, and that's honestly true. For the past 120 days, past 4 or 5 months, all I've been doing every day is just literally being focused, just building business, and here we are now.
So you brought up an interesting point, and I remember that conversation because it's not always a fun conversation to have, but to get that click and that transition and that shift to put somebody into gear, sometimes, the right thing may not be the thing the person wanted to hear at the time. And I'm happy to see that, you plowed through that and took that as the constructive criticism that I meant, when I delivered it. And one of the challenges that I have too is, from my perspective, being in the business for 10 years, closing hundreds of deals, 20, 18, 25 deals per month, I see a lot of people come and go in the business, Chris. So I see, how we did the deal the first time and then the deal closed and then you had to go back. a lot of people do that, and then they never come back around. You know what I mean? Years and years later, there's some people who I remember being highly successful. I'm talking, certainly 100 to 150, 180, $200,000 a year. This one person was making in their business, and to my knowledge, he still hasn't come back around. I haven't seen him anywhere. I haven't seen his name, popping up on comps, nothing like that. So I can only assume that either he moved out of the area or he just stopped doing real estate. I mean, we also, the person that I'm thinking about, experienced a failure as the market crashed and got out. But I guess the point I'm making is that there are a lot of people who show up at these networking events like the Ring meeting in Philadelphia that I run, and they're calling on the bandit signs, and you're going to start getting calls from these people you probably already have from other wholesalers, and everyone's excited. We're all bringing, we're going to make all this, money and do all these deals. And, this is a big one I hear a lot. I am so passionate about real estate. I just love real estate. And, I used to say the same thing, and I think it's like, actually, I don't remember if I said it, but like, to be honest with you, we together, Chris, and everybody on my team, we fill a function in society as wholesalers, as fix and flippers, as buy and hold investors, buyers, lenders. Everybody who comes to the party is bringing something to the table, whether it's money, whether it's deals, whether it's construction resources, construction management, and we all have this collective goal of improving God's creation. Like, we literally need to go into these neighborhoods and guide the seller through that process of negotiation, hand-holding, educating that seller as to what the property is really worth, which is usually much, much less than what they initially would like to believe it's worth. Guide them through that sale, through the title process, opening estates, getting back balances from the water company, the gas company, tax prorations, getting the taxes paid up, and doing all these things to clear the title, which had been clouded and dirtied up over the years. Is usually a lack of attention by the families, the seller who originally had it, their heirs now inherit a problem that had grown over the course of 20 years. So it's our job, everybody who's listening in on this call in the real estate investment world, it's our job to handle all these problems and then bring in the capital and then do the renovation and do a refinance and put a family in there who is a tenant and rents the property out and celebrates holidays, and or sells that property retail to someone who's going to live there, so that ultimately the end goal is a much improved house that often started blighted in a neighborhood, bringing in a new family for a fresh start and a fresh beginning, so that you serve not only that family by providing that place, but you also serve that entire neighborhood as a whole, who's much more happy that Chris Seaborn came in, found this decrepit shell that nobody's been living in for 2, 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, some of these deals. And, ultimately began that interaction of all those parties, the person with the money, the contractor, the title company, the whole team that comes together and turns that piece of blighted property into something that the neighbor is now proud of, or even has to aspire to get their own house looking to be in that kind of a condition. So it's a very natural function in the market that we all serve as investors. I think I got off on a tangent there a little bit, but was that making sense?
No, it's perfect, because ideally, the way I look at it, it's the highest form of philanthropy for me. It honestly is, serving the community, being true to myself, helping everyone. I mean, it's a great experience all around the board. And like you said, to be able to add value, the more value you add in people's lives, into society, the more you can become. So I would just believe individuals like us, we add so much value to society.
I remember where I was going with it. So we see the new people come around and they say, I love real estate. And initially, I'm going to be completely honest, I was attracted to the fact that I could make $6,000 for like 8 to 10 hours worth of work. I said, oh yeah, I loved that, to be honest with you. When I first started, I saw, assignment fees. I remember the first conversation. I was at a Ring meeting, and a couple of the people that I still do business with today were having a conversation in front of me. And I remember them talking back and forth like pretty quickly. And they were saying, yeah, so this one, I owe you that $5,000 on this deal. And this one was $7,000. So that's $12,000 to you. And then you owed me $1,000 for this. And so that was $11,000. And my head was spinning. I couldn't believe the size of the numbers that these guys were talking about. I said, oh yeah, this is going to be good. And that was before I had closed my first deal. So initially, I'm going to be honest, and I think people are attracted to real estate because it's a fabulous vehicle to make long-term wealth, to build long-term wealth for rental properties. And I believe it's also, you can get in and make large amounts of cash by wholesaling deals and getting a quick start and literally go from the point of scraping bottom, living check to check, to a point where you're able to reinvest in marketing. That's why I think it's important for people to understand they have to bring something to the table in order to eat. When somebody has no skin in the game and you're coaching them along, it's a very rare person. You wouldn't want to do this. Let me explain it to you like this, Chris. So you're generating leads now and you're paying money for these leads. And would you want to hand those leads over to one of the new people who calls you up and have them run out on the lead and learn
Not
the business?
At all.
So when someone comes to you and, when someone has some skin in the game, they've already decided, like Chris, you've decided that you want to be in this thing so bad that you were willing to put your cash into this business. You were willing to invest in leads to be a part of the business. And I think that's important because people who are already in the business, when you bring in something, everybody wants to see somebody with some skin in the game. And a lot of buy and hold investors and a lot of your buyers are going to say, you have no skin in the game as a wholesaler. But the truth is, we have to invest without any promise of return in bandit signs and letter campaigns, time and putting mailing lists together, et cetera, et cetera. So whenever somebody has exhibited that and has put skin in the game, their level of commitment is proven by that skin. Right, Chris?
Yes.
Let's talk about your transition, because you had some mindset shifts, right? You had been working on who Chris Seaborn is in that year and a half, right? Can we talk about that a little bit, because mindset is so important?
I think that's the biggest part of it. When I first came into the game, you introduced me to a couple self-help books, audios that really helped me. But in that time, I had, I was working odd end jobs, and I was selling meat door to door. I was just scratching to get by. Like literally, I hit my low. I hit my life's low. One day, everything clicked, and since that day, I learned to mature and let go of the past. Let go of my past and continue to build and focus on my vision and my future, because you got to walk into the future, see yourself doing it, and then, literally come back and actually do it in the normal life. So I think the biggest thing with me was letting go of everything in my past, letting go of everything and just reinventing myself. I honestly can, even you can say I'm a totally different person from when you first met me. I know I am. Mentally, subconsciously, I train myself literally to just stay aligned with my goals and not to allow the distraction distract me. So that's where I am right now.
Do you have a written set of goals, or do you have a ritual for writing those goals out? How often do you
in my
revisit?
room? I have signs all around. This month I want to acquire 10 properties. I have 90-day rituals, 90-day quantum leaps, which I follow by literally 90 days of focusing on, getting to the next step. So I just came out a 90-day quantum leap. And the quantum leap is taking your income from one aspect to the other extreme. And that's what I've done within these past 90 days. Now, within these next 90 days, we're literally scaling up. And when you're talking about, like you said, reinvesting back into the marketing. So, I aspire to be a top 5 income earner. I aspire, to earn over $80,000 within the next, 4 to 5 months consistently. Yeah, I just really want to honestly reach my full potential.
And this is cool, because a lot of times there's like this belief out in society, certainly amongst people who have not obtained higher levels of success, that, when you make good money or you see somebody who's successful at their craft, whether it's real estate, whether it's basketball, whether it's some other entrepreneurial business owner, and a lot of times there's this feeling in society that person kind of like hit the lottery, like they stepped in shit, and that was how they were just born at the right place, or they were at the right place at the right time. Whereas, here's the reality of the situation is that, you got your 90-day quantum leap. You wrote down a vision of what your life looked like, and then had to fill in the blanks of how to get to that point, correct?
Yes.
So I do the same thing. I'm a written down goals kind of person. I don't put everything in the iPhone. I know that some people, prefer one way or the other, and I guess either way is fine. I'm just a big fan of having books. I mean, I literally have my appointment and my to-do list books from 2006 and 2007 with like notes about sellers written in there. And we've switched over to Podio, which is much more effective for tracking sellers. However, I still have my daily to-do list of the most important 6, 7, maybe 8 things that absolutely must get done, written down on a daily basis in this book. And one of the things I do is it's laid out, Monday through Sunday, because I'm kind of like a 7-day-a-week guy. I do have a life outside real estate when I want to. My schedule's flexible enough that I can spend time with my daughter, and I can go to the gym, and I can go out with friends who are completely unrelated to real estate and detach, and I do that, but I do work 7 days a week. So I may, plug in and spend an hour or two working on my business on a Sunday, or, definitely during the week I'm spending much more than that. But I have on the next page after the 7 days is my goal sheet. So I'll have my weekly goals. These are goals that must be done this week. These are the things, there's only usually 5 to 6 things that will go on that weekly goal sheet that I must accomplish. And I make sure that they are things that I can control. And what I mean by that, Chris, is I don't put something like to the effect of I want to get 5 deals under contract, because it's a little bit slightly outside of my control to dictate that result. But what I can control, if that's my goal, I may know that I need to take, I may need to make 50 phone calls to 100 phone calls to leads who have contacted me recently, immediately contacted me, or contacted me in the past. And I may need to go through and make 100 phone calls. And that's something I can control. I can say I can make 100 phone calls because that's activity that I can do separate from the result. And the 5 deals may or may not come out of that. And I may have like a wish to do that 5 deals under contract that week, but I do it instead. It's things that I can control. So as another example, what will show up on my weekly goals list is the beginning of the month, I'm sending out 18 to 21 to 25,000 letters through 3 markets. So for that first week of the month, January 1st through January 5th, it's very difficult. It's like for me giving birth, because I'm getting the mailings ready. I'm building the list. I'm going through the data. I'm sorting the data. It's a 3 or 4 day process to get that just right and then ship that out to my mail person who then handles that. So that's my number one goal for the first week of every month, is to make sure that my marketing package is put together promptly, written, write the mail piece, and get that shipped off. So that's my weekly goals. And then I'll have like my goals for January 31st. So I might have a couple other projects or marketing campaigns or, topics and guests that will show up on this podcast. There will be some of the items on my monthly goal list. And then I'll have, at this time of year, I'll have a quarterly goal. So, 1 or 2 or 3 things that kind of have hanging out on the horizon until March 31st, which I'm starting to look at. And then I'll have a handful of goals that I'd like to acquire in 2016. So those are, the goals. And I'll make sure that, every time I rewrite that goal sheet every week. So sometimes there's goals that show up on one and then they don't seem so important, on a following week. They kind of are not relevant anymore for whatever reason. Circumstances change. They just didn't feel right to me. For whatever reason, I just removed those goals. As an example, new construction. So new construction was a goal. I really wanted to start building new construction in this year. Here I wanted to have dirt under contract by the 31st, which is about a week or so from now. We're actually on Christmas Eve morning, Chris and I recording this, which will be heard a few weeks from now. So I removed that because to me, it was a distraction. I'm not ready for it. I'm not strong there. And I know where I can win, and I can win in fixing and flipping houses, funding deals that way, and by wholesaling property and helping other people just like you, Chris, getting into the business and moving forward. So that's my goals list. So let's talk about your next 90 days. What do you have for the next 90 days or going into 2016? What do you figure will happen? What's the vision look like for Chris?
Wow, it's very clear, and I'm on task, and I'm right here where I need to be. Basically, coming into 2016, coming in established, coming in with all my marketing channels in place, my team in place, me being a good asset to my team, just the resources, everything is in place for me to continue to move forward and for us to continue to generate the business that we aspire. So that's my vision, just to be, and the biggest thing I love about this business is that on a day-to-day basis, the average person may not understand or know, but there's no overhead. I mean, there is overhead, the marketing and the time and investment, but, when you're talking about, having your own company, a business, and the overhead is really low, I really take advantage of that and really hone in because I just believe in 2016, I'm really going to take off in the market. I honestly believe that.
So last 3-4 months, right now, I know that you and I have a couple things we're working together. We have a couple deals, that I'm running through the atomic buyers list that I'm putting on the MLS. I'm managing, real estate agent activity on and things of that nature. Do you know how many deals we have cooking right now?
Yeah, right now we have, I believe, 4. Right now, currently we have 4 deals working right now.
And you have a couple of them that, you had done completely on your own and separate, just so everyone gets a perspective. It's not like...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely got, I got my own situation going on as far as, being an independent business owner. But, on that side of things, I love reverse wholesaling, like having, a couple guys we can call and get something done like ASAP. So I got that established, and I'm affiliated with Diamond Equity and you. So yeah, 2016 for me looks bright, and I just want to continue to just acquire maybe between 8 to 15 to 20 deals a month, and keep pushing forward.
So let's talk about how we've worked on a few deals and maybe some lessons that you've learned along the way, negotiation wise, or how have I helped you out, and Jonathan, basically the Diamond Equity team. What did we bring to the table as far as maybe negotiation skills, some insight, or some lessons that you really learned that you think that like somebody who's new in the business may not recognize that, coming from me, if I tell them, oh, you need to be this, this, and this, and this, and until they have that perspective of the couple deals that fell apart. Can you give me a few stories, examples of things like that, and maybe the lessons learned there, so new investors may not have to fall into that trap?
A lot of negotiation, that's going to come with experience. I was coming from a sales background, so it's kind of, I was kind of used to that, hardcore trying to close. I was kind of used to that. But coming into the business, working hand in hand with you, it's more psychological. It's more of a psychological battle, the chess game of negotiation with the homeowner. Not trying to, at the end of the day, we have a job and, we have to do it. And, we're here to help as well. But negotiation is negotiation. But negotiation is a psychological practice. And you always bring that up to me. Always. Always, always, always. So I believe that right there in negotiation, just taking it more internal, not so much more as was said, more as, how you hold yourself, your posture, your tone of voice, your tonality, your strength of character. A lot of that plays, and you helped me with a lot of that within the past month and the past couple of years in my negotiation.
And let's talk about like the offer range, right? Because I know for a fact, just as a result of how many investors or wholesalers getting started can't close the deal because the number is just too high. So do you think you could shed some light on like the offer range?
Yeah, the offer range. Ideally, you want to start as low as possible, just to psychologically get the homeowner off of their hope and dream of a number that they think they can get. Kind of got to bring them down to reality. You kind of got to go through the negative and fight before you can actually resolve the issue, and everybody's out smiling on the end. That's one thing I tried. That's one thing I've got better at. Newcomers, they come in and you even hear them on the phone. They sound fake. You know what I'm saying? And when so it's just like it has to be like authentic. It has to be real. What you're saying has to be authentic and real, and you have to be of a person of power for them to even believe in you to, to go forward with it. So it's really big on like the whole mental game. That's what it's about with me.
And what happens to the deal, right, when we're outside of the offer range? Like the offer range is the numbers where you can successfully close a deal. And I talked about this on the Atomic Buyers List, how you have a deal that's obviously a deal. It's a no-brainer. And that's anything within that original offer range. So you and I talk, we come up with an offer range. We need the property for between $10,000 and $15,000. Anything outside of that is not a no-brainer, obvious deal, and it's now in the gray zone. And the gray zone maybe exists from, 15 to 23,000, but then there's a certain area in the gray zone where it just disappears, and even $1,000 over the gray zone deal sometimes is too much, and the deal won't move, and it's just not a deal that should ever be time invested. And most times I see that new investors have no notion, they have no knowledge, they have no experience of this 3-part range where you can get a deal, make money, you can get a deal, maybe make money, you can get a deal and never make money, ever make money, unless you find, some lucky buyer, which you'd be better off probably just investing in a couple lottery tickets on a regular basis, because that's, the likelihood. Like every once in a while, someone pops something off, like to the neighbor or something of that nature, or somebody who wants to live there who just happens to have cash. But the entrepreneurial cash buyers who are buying property on a consistent, regular basis that you can build your business around, never buy anywhere outside of that gray zone, and they always will buy in that original offer range, where it's obviously a deal. So what happens in your experience? I mean, you had a couple of them, Chris, that, can you tell me about some of the frustrations of deals that maybe, outside of the offer range?
But it boils down, and it's the biggest thing that we lose is time. The only thing that we lose is time. We lose time, because if you get a deal that's in a gray zone, that's really not a deal, you're not doing nothing but wasting your time and the homeowner's time. And it's going to take for you to lose your time to see that it's not a deal. So by that time, after a couple of those deals of you losing time and focusing on all the time you lost, when that one situation, when the numbers wasn't right from the beginning, you get it. And you say, you know what? The deals I make money on is the deals I make money on. The deals that I can't, the deals I walk away from. And, you just can't be emotional in the game. And they just got to just keep it like, that dry and that's straight.
Going into that deal, like let's just take an example of one of your deals that, it hasn't closed, and that now looking back, it's obvious that it was kind of outside the range of where we needed to be. I mean, what was the thought process going into that deal? I mean, originally, before you had learned the lessons, what were you thinking as you were like signing the deal up, Chris?
Well, what it was, I can honestly tell you what it was being too nice, you know what I'm saying, allowing my lack of experience to be the biggest naive, you know what I'm saying, just like being too nice, not abiding by the offer range, just being too eager to sign something up, which technically just because you sign something up doesn't mean you're going to make money on it or, it's going to be profitable. Just rushing, wanting to get out of that hot zone and because it's a hot zone when you're battling, negotiating in the living room, so you got to be kind of like a boxer and seasoned and well trained to handle those experiences to, start coming out on top. But yeah, as an amateur, definitely I took a couple beatings.
Yeah. Would you say that you were trying to help the seller? When you say you were being too nice, was it like you wanted to help them out of the situation and you felt like, it's more of trying to help the seller. It's more of trying not to lose the deal. It's more of trying to, what I'm trying to say, just trying to be the right person, at the right time, trying to do everything right when it doesn't work like that. You just got to just be in control of what you're in control of and go from there. But yeah, in this business, I kind of like to keep the edge because it's, you got to be aggressive. It's an aggressive business, aggressive. What we kill is what we eat. So, with that mindset, I'm always aggressive and always on go. I have a feeling like, maybe that, and I don't know that a lot of new investors, I know I could have never articulated it or identified it, but I think, we hear a lot of information on YouTube and we hear some, couple little pieces here and there. It takes a while to build the experience up and put it all together. But we hear a lot of stuff about win-win deals, and it's got to be a win for the seller and it's got to be a win for the buyer. And, if you got to put win-win deals together, and we hear all this stuff, and, maybe that's along the lines of what some people are thinking is, hey, I'm helping the seller out. I'm going to, sign this up for the best deal I can. And then I'm going to go find someone to buy it, and it's going to help that seller out of the situation. And let's say that was the case on some level for you, Chris, right? And you were helping them out by signing the agreement of sale up, right? 2 months goes by, you didn't close that deal. Would that seller have been better off if you were upfront, honest, and just went at it the right way from the beginning? Or did you help them out by misleading them in a sense that the deal was going to get done at the higher number. I mean,
exactly.
Did we, in a sense, really help that seller then, if we look back at
all.
it?
Nope. And that's what the indecisiveness and inexperience brings. Those actions, those reactions to your actions that you never even thought about. So it's kind of good that you even touched on that, honestly.
Yeah, that is, real hot button for new investors. And one of the things that people have that I noticed, or that, I don't think I believed it at first, because I'd been to a few seminars and met a few people. I kind of knew what the deals needed to look like numbers-wise, because I was taught to analyze deals from the very beginning as if I was going to get hard money on the deal, close on the deal, do the renovation myself. So even when I did my first deal that, quote-unquote, ended up being a wholesale deal, my course of action was walk in, figure that I needed to put about $30,000 worth of repairs into the place to get it up and ready to either resell or rent it out. And my goal was to go find hard money or private money to close on the deal. And I didn't know, I should have known it was a $5,500 house. I should have known that not many lenders and nobody was going to want to lend money in that neighborhood because it's such a high risk. And that is why I got the deal so cheap. But my goal and my approach to the deal was doing the numbers as though the investors do the numbers. The investors who are actually profitably putting deals together and using cash, whether their own or other people's money, to close on the deal and do a profitable deal. So that was my approach from the beginning, whereas I noticed that a lot of people believe erroneously that real estate investors are people with so much cash that they just basically splash money around in any direction and indiscriminately, don't care if it's a piece of real estate. They're like just so hungry they want to buy the real estate, and they'll just pay any old number, and that's how you're going to help the seller out. And that's a fundamental problem for new people and outsiders to have, especially if they're going to get into the game and plan on serving them by bringing properties to the table, by bringing something to the table. If they're going to serve the cash buyers by bringing that inventory and going out there and finding that inventory, if they have that, if they believe erroneously that investor, the real estate investor, is this rich and cash-heavy buffoon that will just buy any property indiscriminately, they're never going to put a deal together. So to identify the psychology of the real cash buyers, the entrepreneurial-minded investors who have gone to seminars, read the books, savvy investors who have private investors who will hand them $150,000, $200,000, $250,000. These private investors entrust these real estate investors with that kind of cash to put into deals because they are good at doing deals and they approach deals to make the deal profitably. So, if you're listening and you don't have that perspective on the cash buyer and what the cash buyer looks like, you would have to take action to figure out what exactly the real deal is and how you can do the math and the numbers the same way that entrepreneurial-minded buy and hold or fix and flip cash buying investor, the same way they're going to do the math. So, Chris, let's talk about the work ethic here for a minute, because one of the things I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day prior, but it's funny. So 5% of the people work hard. As much of the 4-hour work week and outsourcing everything to VAs and, making systems and all this maybe advanced higher level, higher volume stuff that maybe is taught on some of these webinars and things of that nature. Let's talk about your work ethic, because we're talking on the phone. Why don't you tell the example? I think you know what I'm getting at right now, right, Chris?
Yep. My day usually starts like this. I look at my actual work week, and I usually wake up around 4:35. I usually wake up, get my mind right, read a couple books, and then go out, put some signs out. And then from there, I come back and, do what I got to do as far as, showing properties, always taking phone calls, because my phone is constantly ringing all day from buyers and sellers, going on appointments, showing houses to my buyers every day. And I make it a point to just, like you said, I have my to-do list, the top 5, 6 things that I have to do, I'm going to do. And then everything else, I'm going to do what I got to do. If I really don't have to do it or be out doing it, I'm not. Right now in my life, my family is number one and my business is number one. So it's just like I'm all in work ethic, because I just know if you literally put your head down and not pay attention to nothing else but like putting the work together, and once you pop your head up, and that can be 30 days, that can be 60 days, that can be 90 days, that can be a year, that can be 2 years, you're going to cover so much ground because of not looking up. You know what I'm saying? And just keeping that mindset of every day, creating new habits. And I just try to create new habits every day. You know, I just try to create new habits every day, and just try to be the best I possibly can be every day. And I just want to be successful.
So it's 10:47 here in Chicago. It's 11:45 or 11:47 in Philadelphia, where Chris is located right now. And what's the date, Chris?
The 24th.
And you got some plans for tonight or tomorrow?
I got plans for today. As soon as I pick up the phone, I got around the corner. I live in South Philly. I got a house under contract. I'm showing my buyer. And I'm showing another one in South Philly. And then once I get finished with my business, I gotta go do a couple last, shopping stuff for my family. And other than that, I probably could chill out with my girlfriend this week. But other than that, really, outside of business, then it's just I just do this every day, Dan.
Yeah, I think that's important. I personally, my board's got 30 bunch of properties. Everybody knows I'm doing a lot of deals. Everybody already figured that out. I'm here also on the morning of Christmas Eve. We're putting this together so that we can add value to the listeners. I mean, you and I have nothing to gain, nothing to really sell here. On this podcast, we're not going to hit somebody with here's a $497 package. There's none of that coming up on here. So it's not like, this is just to add value to the people, share our experience, give back. And either way, it's showing our commitment to the business by, taking this hour or so and putting this together for people. Same thing. Where I'm going with it is, if you're new in the business or you're looking for a higher level of success, don't be afraid to work on the weekends. Don't be afraid to work at night. Don't be afraid to turn off the TV and miss a football game on Sunday night. I've missed Super Bowls. I wrote one of my books while the Super Bowl was playing. And if anyone's interested, I will tell you how you can get a copy of that book. For now, Chris, do you have any other topics or items before we get to the last couple of questions here?
A big topic for me is, and what I just try to stay focused on, is high conversion rate. Like I said, I come from a car sales background. So, if an individual's on your lot or, they come in or a phone call, you only have one opportunity for this potential sale. So that's kind of like where my mindset is. Like, I want to try to make every opportunity profitable if possible. So I believe if I have 10 leads, I believe personally I can get 6 or 7 out of 10 under contract at a good enough number where we can be profitable.
I like that.
I believe, like even now, I've seen my phone blow up with leads. I've seen my phone, not blow up with leads. And even when it's slow, I'm still putting a lot of properties under contract because of the conversion rate. You see what I'm saying, Dan?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just want to focus on even throughout my marketing, just to try to focus on like really having a high conversion rate if possible. And I just believe that if I do that, everything else will work out.
Do you have any, say, like the frame of reference here for the high conversion rate? I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. You had a couple deals that didn't close, right? So if you could go back and take those out, what number out of 10? If you were doing 6 out of 10, and how many didn't close and were just aggravation, if you were to adjust that and say, all right, let me in 2016, let me do a smaller number. This is my goal, to do not necessarily a smaller number, maybe the same number, but of higher quality deals. My goal is on now quality as opposed to simply quantity. Before it was like, I didn't care if it was a burned out shell and I could make $500. I wanted to work on a deal, but then I got bogged down in title issues and the $500 type shell deal never closed, and there was a lot of phone calls and a lot of aggravation, and a seller that was aggravated because we couldn't get the deal closed, and title with $30,000 in liens on a $4,000 purchase price. So I'm looking to adjust my site and say, okay, well, how can I now focus and just have consistently cleaner titles and higher profit margins because I negotiated a better deal? So what would be the real conversion rate if you had to handicap that number, and maybe adjust the goal?
Yeah, you're right. Going into 2016, ideally, it's like, got the leads generate, got the channels. Now, like you said, each deal's got to be more profitable. So that's my main focus coming in 2016 as well. But as far as the conversion rate, I say if I had 6, I would say, quality 4, or even the 6. But in the negotiation, if I would have done things differently, I would have got that number lower than what I needed it. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like the mistakes or the lessons that I've made in the business of, say, if I get a number too high, I will be hesitant And every deal that I will put under contract, if the number's too high, I won't put it under contract. I will be hesitant because, like, I don't want to waste my time. You know, we're talking about doing volume, so it's just time is big for me. And, yeah, out of that 6, I would say a good 4 or 5 quality deals.
And numbers-wise, offer range-wise, you know, when you get me involved on the deal before that offer's made, is that easier for you, or is that more difficult? Or just talk about that experience.
It's so easy. It's easier because it's like I'm the player, you're the coach. You know what I'm saying? It's like you kind of can like mentally prepare me for things that I may not be mentally prepared for. You know, I may talk to you and, we'll be dealing with everyday life, and you bring me back to the mindset that I need to be of strength. You know, and everybody don't have. That's why I say the mentor is the biggest thing you have in the business, because all the time mentally I'm thinking about 100 things, but when I talk to you, you get me right back to where I need to hone in on to be highly successful for right now, and I appreciate that. Yeah,
man, I appreciate you being on the team, Chris. Let's talk about that. I mean, you know, I won't beat into this thing too much, but like ideally, there's a certain time in the deal that if you pass this time and then try to bring me in to give insight, we kind of already made the play, and then there's kind of a sweet spot time to get me involved on the deal. Can you shed some light on that, so if anybody was listening and was trying to do the same thing, they would know exactly when to reach out?
Yeah, for sure. You know, most of the time when I generate a lead, I put it in my CRM, I take my notes, and if it's a hot lead, or, you know, I'll give you a heads up. You know, i.e. message, i.e. call, i.e. audio, you know, but I'll give you a heads up, let you know exactly what's going on. And I would just get you involved early. I'll get you involved early. You know, like I said, I'm coming from an athletic background. I'm getting my coach involved early. Like, and I've come back to you before, too late in the game. And I'm looking at you like, damn, what do I do? And it's just like, it's too late in the game. So I felt that pain before. When it's just like, damn, what do I do? Right? It's just too late. You got. So I would just say, just get your mentor involved early in the process, so you both can be on the same page going all the way through.
And that's typically before the first living room appointment, because Chris and I are usually looking to go in and sign a contract up in the living room on the first visit, mentally prepared, financially analyzed the deal ahead of time, you know, went through the comps, know what I can sell that property for, and we've got our offer range before Chris goes into the living room, and oftentimes a plan of attack and a game plan before we go in. And, you know, there's those frustration times, Chris, is after you make the offer, some sort of offer or some sort of talk about the number or price that you potentially could pay or said you were willing to pay. If that number was already floated out there, it's like a missile leaving a ship. It's too late. That thing is already flying towards the target. That ship sailed already. There's no way to kind of like, it's over. And in very, very rare instances, we have the ability to backpedal and talk out, but I'm talking very rare, like finding a diamond in a stream as you're walking down, you know, through Wissahickon Park in Philadelphia. Like, there's no diamond mine there to begin with to put the diamonds there. Very, very, very rare instances could we ever backpedal our way out of a situation and renegotiate. So if the numbers have never been, it's all about the psychological position of strength and portraying confidence in your ability to get the deal done, is say that number, once that number said, you know, you've already played that card. That card needs to be played once, and it better be played expertly if you plan on winning the game. Chris, I know you had talked about mindset. Usually I ask for book recommendations, and I know you found some information on podcasts, things of that nature. So if you have any book or other knowledge source recommendations for people who are looking to get into wholesaling, maybe wholesaling already, what would be the most 3 impactful sources of information that you have found up to this point?
Wow, I'm giving away gold now. I'm telling you. Well, I got to start out with number 1, Think and Grow Rich. You know, of course, Kevin Trudeau, you introduced me to Your Wish is Your Command audio. That right there, Dan, that year and a half, that's what I was, you know, even to this day. But that changed my subconscious mind, helped me change my subconscious mind. Also, a couple years ago when I was in used car sales, I got this book called Negotiation Techniques, you know, that really work. And I just got this from your office. I got a couple books from your office right now. I'm in all the time. It's called Scale from Jeff Hoffman. Talking about scaling up your business, you know, doing what you got to do, you know, the steps, the mindset, just scale up. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm really reading that book right now. Scale up. That's what I'm on.
Nice. We're kind of at the top of the hour now, Chris, so I'd like to ask you, do you have any final jewels of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yes. I mean, I love this business. I love real estate. You know, Daniel Breslin, from day one, he was real. You know, here we are now, we're doing business with each other. But it's not easy. It's not easy. I'm starting to see success now, and I've been in the business going on, 2.5 years now. I've been doing deals, but we're talking about consistently doing deals, building a business, So I've been in the game 2.5, 3 years, and I'm starting to see success. So it's, you got to buckle up and go through the journey, but it's not for the weak ones, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, you're right about that, Chris. You actually have a key to my office, right?
For sure.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. You went from coming around and, I literally, Chris, it's hundreds of people that have come, if not thousands over the years, have approached and, showed up at the ring meeting or emailed me, from the buyer's list or from the ring meeting marketing materials, even from the podcast. People reach out to me on email sometimes and, they're starry-eyed and want to get in the business, and I never see the name again. A handful of people, you see them start coming around and they start to grow, and it's really a pleasure to be a part of that growth process with you. And you brought something to the table. You didn't just disappear. I mean, when I said, hey, what are you going to bring to the table? I half expected that was going to be the last time I heard from Chris again. And then you ended up sorting out a few methods and starting to bring some leads to the table. And, first they didn't work out. A few of them were pretty much real hard junk deals to get closed. And then some of them started to connect, you know what I mean? And you start doing business and, fast forward a couple more months and you got the keys to the office. You let yourself in and out, at will. Get to pick from my library, which is probably my most valuable asset, separate from, my time and relationship with God. And yeah, it's been a great journey, Chris. I really appreciate you coming on the show here and giving up your time here on this holiday where many are already taking off.
Dan, thank you so much. It's really well appreciated, man. This is my dream. I'm living my dream. Honestly. It was my plan was to come back to, to Philadelphia to link up with Daniel Breslin to do business, and that's I'm literally living my dream. So I'm blessed, and I just thank you again.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. And if anybody is listening and wants to get some more information, I wrote a book which was basically my business plan for diamond equity investments. It's for sale currently on Amazon. It's been for sale through other channels for a while now. I am feeling good in the Christmas spirit, and even if you're listening to this later, there's a chance that the download link would still be active. This is available by going to www.atomicbuyerslist.com, like an atomic bomb, like power of nuclear fusion, atomic energy, very, very powerful buyers list, atomicbuyerslist.com. And if you'd like to download my 145 or so page book, Become a Wholesale Real Estate Master, you will have to listen to that audio to figure out how to get your hands on that VIP free gift, since you'll be one of the very important people in my network here, just like Chris is today. So again, if anybody's interested in checking that out, go to www.atomicbuyerslist.com. There's a powerful audio there you can listen to that talks about the ways that we get our deals sold, and often sold at slightly higher prices than they would have sold for, on their own, separate from the Atomic Buyers List system. Thank you for checking out this episode of the REI Diamonds podcast, the Wholesale Masters Series, number 2 here with Chris Seaborn. Are you enjoying what you've been hearing here? Maybe you know somebody else who would also enjoy the episode. You can always shoot them a link and tell them to sign up to receive weekly episode updates at www.reidiamonds.com. And you can also subscribe in the iTunes app. Just search REI Diamonds and click subscribe. Until next time, this is Dan Breslin signing off.
Thanks for listening to the REI Diamond Interview. To receive the REI Diamonds newsletter and interview monthly, sign up now at www.reidiamonds.com.